Hi, I'm Tana Lundquist with Houston Pet Set. I'm co-president with Tina Lundquist-Faust, co-president of Houston Pet Set. And we are here today with Miss Mary Warwick from the TWRC Wildlife Center. I have to make sure I get those letters right. So Mary, thank you for being with us
Thanks
today.
for having me.
And we also have Woodson the duck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure all of our guests and friends are wondering what he's doing here today. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the TWRC and how you got started, and Woodson, or however you want to start?
So TWRC has been around since 1979, and they started out as a loose affiliation of rehabbers because wildlife rehabbers at the time were just doing things out of their houses, and they would have to have their phone number out there, and people would have to come to their house to drop off things. And so that got a little concerning, so they decided to do like a phone bank that people could take turns answering. And so it started out very small. Sorry, Woody. And then it kind of started growing, and they said, well, maybe instead of just taking turns, we want to, have a little location where people could come. So they opened up a trailer in the Town and Country Mall for a while, and then they finally got a small building, and then that got too small, and now we're in a center off of Hammerly Boulevard, and we've got about 5,000 square feet and have education animals in the building, and we also rehabilitate a lot of our baby animals, our baby squirrels, our baby opossums, and our baby birds at the center.
So do you get calls with people saying, I've got this animal and he got into my attic and he's got a hurt paw or something, can you come out and get him, or can I bring him to you, I've captured him?
This time of year we get about 50 calls a day.
50
like
a day?
That. So it's all, it's this time of year, mostly baby calls, but a lot of injured calls as well.
Wow.
And we can't, unfortunately, yet come out, but that's one of our next goals, is to have an ambulance and have people that can actually go out and pick up animals for people.
So you will accept animals?
Yes.
But you just can't go out and get them?
Right now they bring them to us.
Wow. Yeah. So do you take in everything that people bring to you?
Yeah, if there's another place that's closer to them, or something that or another rehabber that we think would fit them better, we will refer them.
I see.
So
do you have fosters?
We still have home rehabilitators for the older animals and some babies. Some people like to do babies at home, so we still do send out animals to home rehabilitators.
And once they're rehabilitated, do you welcome them or bring them back into their communities then where they were found, or are there ever any cases where you have to keep them forever?
Right, great question. So some animals are very territorial, like so hawks. If it was a hawk that's over a year old that could have possibly had a mate, since they mate for life, we always release them back where they came from, so hopefully they can find their mate. If it's a first-year hawk that hasn't found a mate, it can be released anywhere. Okay. It just depends on the species. But if necessary, we do get all the information so that we know where they were found, so we can release them back.
Do you do large wildlife? Like, what if somebody has a deer, or?
We don't do deer. That's a special permit.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, and we just don't get that many calls about deer in the city, so we don't do deer. We currently don't do coyotes, and we send bobcats to one of our home rehabilitators. But we're looking to get a larger building next year with outdoor caging that we can start doing that.
Are you a nonprofit?
Yes, we're a nonprofit.
And how do you fund yourselves?
Strictly by donations. We write a lot of grants. We raised $60,000 last year in grants to improve our hospital. So we went from a small vet room to a full-service hospital that we can do surgery and blood lead, all kinds of things right there on site.
So are there any animals that haven't been able to go back out into the wild that you will keep for the remainder of their lives?
Yes, Woody is one of those. So unfortunately, we didn't raise Woody. He was found as a baby, and his mother was nowhere to be found. So a member of the public raised him, and she did a good job raising him. It is illegal to raise wildlife without a permit because they do have very specialized diets and special things you need to do so they can be released. So that's where she missed the mark. She raised him by himself, and so he became imprinted on humans. He doesn't like to be around ducks, and it's not safe for him.
I don't know why that's funny.
That's funny. Yeah, it is funny. And he thinks he's a human. So it's unfortunate for him because
Yeah.
he really should be out in the wild. That's where he belongs.
Yeah.
But it's not safe for him because he's not afraid of humans and he's not afraid of dogs. He doesn't have that natural instinct like he should, and so he has to stay with us as an ambassador animal.
Does he know when you're talking about him?
I don't know.
Oh, does he
I don't
know commands?
He's very curious. No, but we have 20 interns this summer that are working with us, and we're going to have some of them do some training with him to give him some stimulation and some interaction.
So I want to go back a little bit. You said, he's been imprinted by humans. Is there not any kind of genetic code in wild animals that says this is what you do? Do they? I guess the environment is more important.
No,
than
so
that for us.
again, it depends on the species. So
Okay.
like a squirrel or an opossum, especially squirrels, pretty much no matter what you do, a squirrel is going to be a squirrel.
Really?
They are very, they are on guard all the time. Something's going to get them. They know their prey, so they're always watching out. So it's very easy once we've raised them. We put all of our animals in outdoor caging to make sure they're ready to be released. They're foraging, all that kind of stuff. Squirrels, like 2 days later, they are squirrels. They got it. Ducks and geese, on the other hand, part of their survival is follow mom because mom's on the go from day one. So that's part of their instinct is to imprint on something. But normally they imprint on their mother. He imprinted on a human, unfortunately.
Okay.
So
That
didn't
makes
work out
sense.
very well for him.
Does he get lonely then, do you think, for his species? Is there any way to tell? Does he follow you around? Does he want to be with a human?
He wants
all
to
the
be
time?
with humans.
Yeah.
And
So he enjoys that love and that company still, even being a wild animal.
right.
He still enjoys that being close, and he
Right.
looks like he loves you.
It's
Look at him.
It's still not in his best interest. I can't tell you how sad
yes,
it makes me.
no.
We I have a
that.
pond behind my house, and there are wood ducks that live out there. When I see him, I just think, oh, I wish I could send him out there.
Yeah.
But he did at one time get away from me. When I first got him, I had him in an outdoor cage before we moved him to the center, and he did flutter away from me and go over to the pond and kind of looked around at the ducks, and he's like, I'm out of here. And he just came back and walked through the wrought iron fence and came back to
Does
me.
he ever get to get in water, like a bathtub or
We
a
have a
pool?
huge 50-gallon pond for
Yeah.
him that he swims around in, and he, ducks oil their feathers. They have oil glands. They oil them, so he's water tight. So you can just see the little drops go off his back. But he loves to play in the water.
So will he ever be a daddy? Will he ever? So he doesn't. He
No.
won't because he doesn't like other dogs.
Well, and we don't have a mate for him. We wouldn't want
Okay.
to breed him
Uh-huh.
because then those babies, would they be good outside? You
Right.
don't want to intentionally have something
Right.
that's meant to be a captive animal
Yeah.
for native wildlife.
Right. So,
So-
do you keep him away from female ducks, or
Well, he's in
He
an
just-
enclosure in
an
our center,
enclosure.
so
I
he
see.
can't really
he doesn't
get
get?
to anyone.
What other animals do you have at the wildlife center right now?
So all of our animals are non-releasable animals. That's why we have them. We have a Virginia opossum. So we like having her because people can see her up close and see how wonderful she is, and touch her and see how soft she is and how clean she is, because they kind of get a bad rap.
Yeah. What is the bad rap that they get?
So people think they carry rabies, or they're dirty, or they're aggressive. So they will open their mouths and look threatening. That's their first response to, because they are a prey species, they'll try and act scary so that you will go away. But they typically don't bite. So their next response is to faint or play
Yeah.
possum. And
So cute.
which for dogs is usually a good thing to do, because the dog wants to chase them, and so they'll just pass out and then they're done.
So they literally pass out.
Yeah,
They're not
so
just
they
playing.
can't. They're not playing. They
Is it
cannot rouse
like the fainting
themselves.
goat?
Kind of like.
Okay.
Yeah. So so they play possum, and then but
But
and
deer
then
do that too, right? Baby deer.
yes, that's
So
that could
it's
be
not
more
the only-
serious
it's-
though, because
yeah.
that can actually kill deer. Deer can die from getting stressed and fainting.
And fainting. Okay.
Yeah.
But I
so-
thought baby deer do that when they don't have their mothers.
Oh yeah.
They just hunker down. But
Yeah.
okay, go ahead with the possums.
So
Virginia.
Yeah, a Virginia opossum. So them being the only marsupial in North America, we like to, educate people about what makes them special,
Mhm.
and the fact that they eat ticks and all kinds of things from our
Yes.
yards, make them really good neighbors to have. So
I have one that, and I think it's the same one probably, but at
Probably
night
so.
he crosses the road in front of my house,
Mhm.
and he runs so fast,
Mhm.
and he's got a little spring in his step.
Yeah,
Like I thought he'd be kind
kind
of,
of young.
yeah, but he runs and then he
Yeah.
hops over the flower garden edge, and then he takes off really fast through the bushes. But I just thought he was so cute when I watch him do that. He's got the same pattern every night.
Yeah, they
And
typically do.
yeah,
Hit the
I
same
just
yards
love
every
him. I
night.
think
And
I
know
should
where they
name
go.
him. I
Yeah.
just wonder where he's going to. I guess to get other bugs and.
Yeah, and they usually will go to a water source and then back to
Okay.
where they sleep or something like that. I mean, we've
Yeah.
got a couple that come in our yard every night, so anytime after dusk, we have to go out with a flashlight to make sure it's all clear before we
Yeah.
let our dog
And
out.
my neighbor has a very low pond
Oh,
or
okay.
fountain, so I bet he's going there to
Yeah,
get water.
yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you have the Virginia opossum, and what else?
And then we have an eastern screech owl. Her name's Iris, and she was brought to the center as a little owlet. She was about the size of a big cotton ball, and one of her eyes didn't fully develop. And backing up to the opossum, one of her eyes didn't develop either, so that's why she couldn't be released. So
Okay.
that's why we have her. And then the owl's eye didn't fully develop, and this was 12 or 13 years ago, and we didn't know back then that owls could still hunt with just one eye. We thought they needed both for depth perception, but we found out they don't. So we have her at the center, and she goes out to different events, and she's the smallest raptor we have in Texas. So we like to show people how small wildlife can be. You don't know they're there. Screech owls are all over in Houston. People have them in their trees, and they just blend right in. People don't even know that they're there. And then we have a red-tailed hawk. His name is Pico, and he was a first-year hawk, and we think just barely out of the nest, and went to try and get chickens through a chicken coop, and got his beak caught in the wire and popped off his top beak, and to the point where it will never grow back.
Yeah.
So we have him, and then we have various snakes and toads and tortoises, things like that.
So it's a sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you sell tickets like a zoo? Can people come
No,
out and look?
People can
No.
just come to the center.
Oh, wow.
So there is a chance if they come that everybody will be out for an event, but when they're there, people are more than welcome to look, and we'll come out and talk to them about who they're looking at and why they're there. And,
Right.
right now we have an interesting creature. So the avian flu has come to Texas recently. I don't know if y'all have heard about that, but it's a virus or a virus that gets into first the duck population and the geese population, and then spreads to raptors, owls, hawks, all that kind of stuff, and eventually usually gets into the songbird population, and it's very deadly. Not very transmissible to humans, this strain, but the strain's very deadly to birds. So we sent the hawk to my house to live to protect him, because if somebody comes into the center and they have avian flu on them, you can carry it on your shoes, you can carry it on your person if you have a bird at home with it. So we're afraid somebody will come in that has it on them and they will get it. Woody's also living at my house right now, and the screech owl's living with somebody else. So we had a free cage, and the Houston Humane Society, along with the deputy constables of, I think, Precinct 5, did an animal cruelty case that involved a coati, which is a South American raccoon-looking animal, and 2 South American armadillos. So since we had the room, we agreed to take them once the court case was finished and to help place them. So we found homes for them at 3 separate zoos, but we're housing them until they're ready for them. So his cage right now, or his enclosure, has a South American coati in it, and we kind of changed things around and put branches in for her, and made a little hammock for her to sleep in. And so people are a little perplexed when they come into the center and they're expecting to see native species, and they're like, okay, I didn't know we had these here. And so, we get to.
Where do so people get them?
Unfortunately, you can go online and buy one, and they're very cute when they're small, and they're very cute when they're large. But this coati, even though she was raised by humans, she is very active. She's almost got a primate quality to her. She will run around her enclosure and jump from branch to branch and in the hammock and jump back out. if she were in your house, she would literally destroy everything that you had. And there's no, you can't take that out of
Right.
her. That's just who she
She's
is.
just doing her thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
she's just being a Kauai.
So we are about halfway through the segment, and we have Mary Warwick with the TWRC with us today, and Woody, our little special guest, the little duck who lives at your sanctuary. So we're so glad you're here.
Thanks.
Yeah. One other question for you, a bunch of other questions. I feel like we could talk forever, but Houston Pet Set and a lot of our rescue community is all about companion animals. So we don't really get into wildlife. Of course we see it, but we don't get into it. How do the companion animals affect wildlife? And we're probably thinking, that's a general question, but then also we have so many feral cats and so many stray cats and dogs. Do they affect wildlife, and if so, how?
Immensely. Dogs less so than cats. So the feral cat population is a huge problem in our country. Cats kill 2.4 billion birds a year. Billion birds per year in the United States alone. They've caused the extinction of 63 species of birds, and
these are domesticated but feral cats. Not domesticated, but they're cats.
Not only feral cats, but
domestic
cats that
people's
are
cats
going
that live
outside.
outdoors.
And again, just like the coati, you can't take that out of a cat.
Yeah.
That is their instinct to go for the birds.
So you're not going to change the cat. We just need fewer cats.
We need fewer cats outside. They're decimating our bird population and changing.
And what does that mean in the food chain?
Well, it changes everything.
Yeah.
It changes the biodiversity of what we have out there. It just has rippling effects all through the ecosystem.
More insects, I would think. Without the birds.
Right.
Them.
And here, close to home in particular, we have a special problem. On Galveston Island, we have piping plovers, which are very threatened. They're near extinction. And they nest in Galveston, and their nesting sites get roped off to keep humans from going there. But Galveston also has a horrible feral cat population, so it's hard to control that.
Is there? Do you guys work with any of the local governments to talk about this issue? Do you say that this is disrupting an ecosystem?
Yeah, when we get a chance, when we're allowed to meet, we do stress that. Yeah, but
what is the response?
It's one of those very political situations where there are people who are cat lovers. I'm a cat lover. I have 2 cats. I love them to death. They're my babies, but they do not go outside.
Right.
And so people have a hard time separating cat lovers from people that are concerned about the ecosystem and the birds. So a lot of people think it's cruel to remove the feral cats or to euthanize the feral cats, and they think about what that might mean. But when you think about 2.4 billion birds, all of those birds felt whatever happened to them. That's a lot of suffering.
Yeah,
it's a lot of suffering.
And also, do you think that the feral cats thrive in their communities? Do you think that they're having good lives?
I think they're suffering immensely.
Yeah.
They're just trying to make it day by day.
So they're even though they're feral, they're not probably not enjoying life.
They have internal parasites, external parasites. They a lot of them get hit by cars and unfortunately survive, and then they're living with these injuries that they were not treated. It's just a horrible existence.
Get attacked by other predators.
Yes.
They get attacked by other cats.
Yeah,
We get the list from the shelters, and we see the cats that come in daily that are on euthanasia lists because they're injured, they're sick, they look horrible. You can see the suffering in these terrible quality photos.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense to allow, these cats to continue to live on the street, and there's nothing but suffering.
Yeah. And a dignified euthanasia is the best thing I think you can do for them to end that suffering. That's what I think we all want, is to end the suffering that animals.
Well, just knowing that they're out there, I guess we've seen enough where we sort of think that a humane death is better than
Always.
suffering on the streets, because
Yeah.
they're suffering
Right.
so terribly, terribly.
Right.
And that's not always a popular belief.
And
There's
I think some
save
people,
them at all costs, but
right, I think some people equate euthanasia with suffering, which is not.
Mm-mm.
It's,
yeah,
it's a different thing.
yeah. I think you have to come up against it quite a bit, both sides, the euthanasia, to kind of get the idea that euthanasia isn't suffering.
Right.
It's actually
Right.
very humane sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about Woody? He's got a little like don't want to scare him. As you can see, I
Yes,
wore
you're
this,
very
so I
dressed nice and
I wouldn't scare him with any bright colors. But
Yeah,
I messed up.
Oh.
Sorry, but Woody's kind of got bright colors on.
He
so
does. Yeah.
He does. We
Look
match
at
a
that.
little bit.
Yeah. And then
Probably match your shirt better than mine.
and these are his breeding colors, and as I was saying before, he is going to lose all of these feathers in a few weeks and become brown with a white ring around his eye, just like a female wood duck, and then do this all over again and be fully feathered in beautiful colors by the beginning of next year, and be ready for the season again.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot of energy to go through.
One species, and you look at him, and he's just exquisite, right?
Yeah. So
and then you think of the hundreds of thousands, millions of species out there, and they all have their own process.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
He's already
Those
lost some of the
feathers.
iridescence, but you can still
Wow.
see some of it here. And then just the detailing, it's okay,
it's
sweetie.
okay,
It's okay.
It's okay,
It's
Woodson.
okay. So the detailing in his chest, where like each one of
Wow.
these little feathers creates a dot,
Uh-huh.
So
Wow.
Could he fly away? Do you have to keep? Are you concerned that he would ever leave and fly away?
No, I typically don't have him outside where
I
he
see.
could fly
so
away.
You have to keep him contained.
Yeah, so he is inside our center, inside
see.
an enclosure,
Mhm.
and we keep that enclosure locked so somebody doesn't accidentally,
Mhm.
go in and release him. And then if we take him to an event, he's inside an enclosure if we're outside, because we just can't have him
Yeah.
outside.
So for people that think it's okay to bring wildlife into their homes to have them as pets, what are your thoughts on that? Whether it's raccoons or sugar gliders or I don't know what the
Snake in the
snake
bathtub.
alligators.
Right. I think it's a horrible existence for the animals.
Yeah.
Even Woody. So even though we're a wildlife rehabilitation center, we have to have special permits to keep animals as education animals. So we have to apply to the state every time we want a new education animal, and we have to have a very good reason why we would like to keep that animal. It's very unfair for them to be taken from the wild and be put in a situation where they can't do all the things that they would normally do.
Right.
You think they're going to be good pets, and then they're not, and then pretty soon they're living in a small cage, barely getting the nutrition they need. All these animals have very complicated nutritional needs, and most people don't know how to meet those needs, and it gets very expensive to meet those needs. So it just becomes very unfair for the animal, and not the experience that people think it's going to be. There are a lot of animals out there that are nocturnal, and I think sugar gliders might be one of them, and people get them, and now there's this animal that's up all night while you're sleeping and you never see it. And there are a lot of animal examples that are like that.
And reptiles too, aren't they very sensitive? Like sensitive to heat and touch and humidity and all of that.
And they have very specific needs for calcium and vitamin D as well. They get bone disease. It's called metabolic bone disease. And if they're not fed the exact diet that they need, they'll get very brittle bones that'll fracture. And they get all these little hairline fractures that are very painful for them that you won't notice.
Gosh.
And so again, it's a thing about suffering.
Leave it to the experts.
Yeah.
And it,
leave it to nature. Yes.
Yeah, leave it to nature.
Yeah, and if a lot of these purchases are made, just on a whim, like, oh, that's really cool, I'm going to go ahead and get that, and then not realizing how complicated and everything.
Do
it
pet
is.
stores do a good job of educating people who buy pets from them?
I think overall they do not. I'm sure there's some that do, but overall I think they do not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what can Houstonians do to keep the wildlife populations safer in our community?
Um, First, during baby season, nesting season, say from February until the end of the summer, don't trim your trees.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you need to, just trim a branch or something. Don't trim a lot, because a lot of times there are nests up there that you don't see, and now you've either killed or disturbed an entire family. And even though they could bring the nest into a wildlife rehabilitator, nobody can do that like Mom can.
Right.
We cannot do exactly what she does. We do the best we can. So it's best for them to stay. And I know people want their yards looking nice and all those things, but just don't do it during the breeding season. Do it during winter, and then your trees will be nice when they start building nests. Keep your cats inside. Build a catio. My cats love their catio. Let them go outside and get some fresh air, but keep them away from wildlife. Check your yard before your dogs go out at night. To make sure that everybody's out of the yard, so that there's no interaction that way. I had a Yorkie when I was in my 30s that killed a 7-pound opossum in my backyard.
Wow. The Yorkie did?
A Yorkie did.
Wow.
So even those, and the small dogs, you want to make sure there's not an owl or a hawk
Right,
out there
something
at night.
that could harm them, or
Yes.
a coyote in
Right.
Houston.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I always go out and clap my hands. Is that a good thing
Yeah.
to do? Is that
Yeah.
enough? Or should we
For
walk the
opossums,
perimeter?
I like to just look, to
Yeah.
make sure, because they don't really hear all that well, and but that's what I tend to do. And then just if anybody finds an animal that they think is orphaned, make sure to contact a wildlife rehabilitator or our center, TWRC, or the Wildlife Center of Texas, to make sure it's been orphaned.
Yes.
A lot of times bunnies are left alone all day from their mother, and people think they've been orphaned, and they kidnap them and take them into a rehabber. So get online, call one of us.
Yeah.
There's a good website called Animal Help Now that will help connect people to wildlife rehabilitators. Not everybody is in our area, so we want to make sure everybody knows where they can get help.
Animal Help Now?
Animal Help Now.
Okay, we'll put that on the...
And that can connect them anywhere. But if they go to our website just to get information, we have a thing about how to re-nest birds. So if a bird falls out of a nest, how to build a little false nest and put it up in the tree so the mom can still care for it, or how to check, there's for every species, like how to check to see if if it needs help or not. Opossums, once they're 7 inches from the tip of their nose to the base of their tail, they're good to go. Mom has shaken them off and she's ready for them to go. So, but we get lots of 8 and 9 inch opossums in the center that are like, nope, you get to take that home now and put them back where you found them.
So good. Such a great resource you're providing.
Oh,
the animals in Houston. Do you have another little guest with you? Are
Yes.
you bringing that out?
Yeah. So I will.
Who's going to hold Woodson?
I've just been sitting here hoping I could.
Well, you match him the best.
Yeah.
We won't see him against
I'm
Hannah.
just gonna steal him in this.
Okay, very scared. Okay.
So one other negative interaction that animals often have, domestic animals often have, is with bats. So we have lots of people with bat houses, or with crevices in their neighborhood or house or whatever, that a lot of our crevice dwelling bats like. We have tree bats and we have crevice bats in Houston. We have about 8 or 9 species of bats in Houston. And if the baby falls out of the nest, then often before anybody can see it, a dog or a cat will get it, which can be very dangerous for the dog or the cat, since bats can be a rabies vector species. And so another good reason to keep your cat inside, because you don't want them interacting with bats. This particular bat that I brought is a big brown bat, and she's about a week old. And she dropped out of the eave of somebody's house and could not be reunited with her mother. Another bat rehabilitator tried to help reunite it, but it didn't work.
She's not going to fly out?
No, they can't fly. She's a baby. And I'm not holding the bat with gloves or anything. I'm holding her with bare hands because I'm vaccinated against rabies. And she has very tiny little milk teeth and really can't bite me.
Okay.
Now, if she were an adult, I would have gloves on, rubber gloves on, and like gardening gloves on. But she can't do much to me.
She's in there?
Yes. So a grown bat in Houston, all of our bats are insectivores. They're very small. They eat
Yeah.
on the fly, eat lots of insects, very good for our ecosystem.
So you say eat on the fly, so they are up there just eating.
Yeah, so that's why
You
they
missed
look.
me.
What?
You missed my invitation.
They're going through the drive-through.
So that's why.
She's tiny. I thought that was the bat.
Well, she's big compared to some of
Well,
the
can you? That's why my eyes were so big.
bats I have.
Oh,
she's little.
Look at her.
Yeah.
Little.
Did you
Look
name
at
her?
Oh.
The kids who found her named her Livy.
Livy.
Yeah.
Like Olivia.
So,
I need my glasses. She's pretty tiny.
yeah.
It's a small font. Look at her. They
Are
get
those
such
her
a
little
bad rap,
ears?
don't they?
They
get
do.
such a bad rap.
They do. So they are great insect eaters.
Yeah.
And very important to the balance. Sorry, my fingers are kind of in the way. Balance of our ecosystem. And I wish I had brought something I could feed her with. They eat in very interesting ways because they're so small, it's hard to feed them.
Yeah.
And so Bat World, which is up near Fort Worth, developed a system of taking the sponges off of eye makeup applicators and splitting the sponge in half and then dropping milk onto that, putting the sponge in their mouth and dropping milk onto the sponge.
Wow.
And so that's how we've been feeding Livy. And then I have about 17 other bats, which are evening bats, which are much smaller, about half the size of her.
It's nice
that
people
also
bring
eat
them
that
in
way.
and are so nice to them.
Now,
Now she's
what kind of
smooth or
milk?
is she fuzzy?
she's smooth. She doesn't
Yeah.
have any hair right now, hardly any
Does
hair.
her look change at all? 'Cause
Yeah,
she's
so
a
you can
little
s-
flat.
She's flat and they're kind of wrinkly when they're little, but you could see the milk in her belly.
Oh yeah.
So that's how I tell when it's time to feed her, by the milk line on her stomach.
So
So
you-
she's still full,
She's
so I
still-
wouldn't want to put.
So you can actually
And
see
I-
into her stomach.
Yeah.
She's that translucent.
What kind of milk does she drink?
Now she's getting a little cold, so I'm gonna put her
Yeah,
back in
yeah,
her
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
She's they need about 70% humidity
So good that
and
she
about
did that.
90 degrees Fahrenheit temperature. So I have a heated
Got a little warmer
a
in there.
heater warmer in there. So that bats are the only mammals that we raise that require some human formula. They've developed animal formulas for most everything we do now, but bats, they haven't developed that yet. So they get a mixture of a particular kind of Similac and goat's milk and corn oil, and extra protein is added in there. And then that's the formula that seems to work. And we're very lucky that Bat World is around. They've been doing this for a long time, so they can teach us exactly what to do, and we don't have to start from scratch, because that would be really hard to figure out over time.
We could
And
talk
bats are the only
forever.
mammals, right, that can fly? Is that right?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Incredible creatures.
yeah.
We used to have them growing up. Remember, in
Yes.
northern Minnesota at night, all the
Mhm.
bats fly, and our dad and mom taught us it was a good thing because,
Mhm.
they ate all of the mosquitoes and
Yeah.
kept those populations
Yeah,
in
they
check.
keep them down. And
Yeah,
we have millions of bats in Houston. I can't imagine what our insect population would be
gosh,
like if
right.
we didn't. The Wall Street bats are
Mhm.
free-tailed bats, and they were hit pretty hard by the freeze a couple of years ago.
yeah.
So hopefully their numbers
Coming
are
back.
building
Yeah.
up again.
Mary, it's so good to talk to you.
Thanks.
I know.
Thanks for having me.
Best. I feel like we could talk forever.
I know.
There's so much. Yeah.
we should do an on-site maybe
Oh, that would be
podcast
great.
sometime from the Wildlife
Oh,
Center.
we
It'd be
would love
fun
to
to
have
visit
you.
you and do something there. Maybe
Yeah, you
we
could,
can make that happen.
Visit the new
How's it
hospital.
going with
Oh,
us?
yeah.
See what we're doing there and visit some of our ambassador
That would
animals.
be
We'd
so
love to have you
great.
anytime.
Yeah.
I have a quick story. I looked out the window one night, like 10 o'clock at
Mhm.
night, and I see all this activity in the pool, and I think somebody's like jumped the fence. 2 raccoons just doing laps back and forth.
Really?
It was the sweetest thing. I was like, what? I mean, do I send them a towel and a
Yeah.
drink? I mean, welcome to the resort.
I
It
used to
was
see
so-
those raccoons. They lived in. I think this is possible. In the gutter. Like I
Oh,
came,
yeah, they go down. In
I
those-
lived
the
next to
sewers,
her,
yeah.
and so when I was coming home late one night, I saw these 2 eyes that my
Mhm.
headlights hit, And I was like, what is that? It was a little freaky after you see that movie about the kid in the gutter, you know, and the red balloon or whatever that is. Yeah. So I was like, do I dare go and look back? I'm going to get sucked into the gutter. But no, it was just a raccoon. And he's just looking at me and I'm like, oh, wow, that's so cool. He's got his own little world.
And that's
He's
why
doing
they
his
make
own...
horrible pets.
Well,
Like they can
it's
get
up all night.
anywhere and they're up all night and they can get into
They're
anything
mean,
and get
too.
anywhere. They can be very aggressive.
We grew up in the country, and our dad always said, "Do not let the dogs get into it with a raccoon. They're very aggressive. So got to keep them separate, all of them, for everybody's sake."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for
Thank
everybody's
you
sake.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for
It was
having
really
me.
great.
Yeah.
For
And
the
if
work
somebody
you
wants
do.
to look up, do you have a phone number or a website that they can
We have a
contact you?
website, TWRC Wildlife Center.org.
Okay.
Please go on and donate. We can always use donations. We don't
Yes.
get any federal, state, or city money. So we're always looking for donations to help us take care of all the animals that we bring in.
So important to keep our ecosystems balanced.
Yeah.
And to educate kids about how important it is too. So,
Respect those animals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Mary.
All righty.